So using textures and materials is kind of crucial. It's kind of fundamental to 3D art. Without them, the 3D scene would be nothing but a bunch of grey objects. It wouldn't be realistic at all. And in the simplest terms, textures and materials are used to paint the surface of a 3D object. But textures and materials are not exactly the same thing, so I'm just going to talk about a bit about that. Textures basically are simply images used to skin 3D objects. So a JPEG or a PNG can serve as a texture. You can find high quality images online that would work just fine. We're going to do that today. But then a material is how a 3D object appear on the screen. So a material can use or will use a texture as a parameter. Materials control the color of an object or how reflective or dull the surface appears, and it can have multiple textures too. So I hope that kind of made sense, but let's just go into a more practical part. To actually bring in textures and to create materials in 3D Studio Max, we need to go to the material editor right here, or you can press M on your keyboard. And this is what you'll basically see. This is the compact material editor, if I'm not, yes. There's also a slate version, which kind of has more details, and this is the place where the materials get created actually, but for now, this is more than enough. So you have a few things, a few parameters that you can change here. We're not going to worry about this right now. If you want, you can change the name of the material that we're going to create. Just make sure that you have this selected or one of these slates selected. These are empty slots that basically this is where you're going to create your materials. This is where you'll see briefly how it is going to look like. So, as you see, there's a few weird words here. Ambient, diffuse, specular. So for example, if you change the diffuse, we can actually change the color. So let's say I want this purple. See that the color of the material changed. So a diffuse map, using a map for a diffuse color is like painting an image on the surface of the object. So it's just going to take the color from the image. Specular maps are used to define the surface shininess and highlight color. So for example, if I want the highlights to be green, it would kind of have a greenish color or highlights. If I change the glossiness level, you'll see that the highlights would be smaller, but the object is going to appear shinier. So this is basically used for metal materials. There's a few other maps that I wanted to talk about. So we've seen the diffuse color that we want to use. We've seen the specular color and the specular level, but we're not going to have a map for that right now, so we're just going to untick that. We're going to use glossiness. We're going to use bump and displacement. So we've seen what a diffuse color is, what a specular color is. A glossiness map kind of defines which areas of the whole surface are more glossy and which areas are less glossy depending on the intensity of the colors in a map. A bump map or a normal map is a way of adding high resolution detail to low polygon objects. So there's actually ways in which you can add details to your object without having to add even more geometry, and this is very useful for video games in which you don't want to have lots of polygons will just slow down your video game, but you also want to have detail. So going with this bump map, normal maps, and displacement maps, this is really important to give you a sense of realness in your scene. Okay, so let me just select a different slot. Let's add a box in our scene. And what I would recommend you to do is you can also get these from the asset section on the website, or you can actually there's a really useful website called textures.com. You need to create an account, which is free. You don't have to pay anything, and just look for concrete, for example. You can use for any other stuff in here. They have lots of things, and I've chosen this one. And there's all the maps that you need right here. So they already have the materials and all the textures for all the materials that you want. So we're going to download the albedo map, which is actually the diffuse map. The height map, which is in this case is going to be the displacement map. This is the normal map. This is the roughness, which is actually the glossiness, the gloss map. And we don't need this one for now. So I've downloaded I've downloaded these four. And what I'm going to do, with this empty slot selected, for the diffuse, I'm going to click right here, which is going to open this map browser. My images are bitmaps, so I'm going to select that and go look for my texture. So I've selected diffuse. I'm just going to go and select this one. So I'm just going to go back. I'm going to go back to parent. I'm going to go here to maps. So I'm going to tick glossiness, and I'm just going to go here to map, to the map slot. It's a bitmap again. We said glossiness is roughness, so I'm just going to choose it. I'm going to go back to parent, bump, choose my normal map, okay, and we have the displacement map. That's going to be my height map values. So the easiest way to apply a material to an object in 3D Studio Max is to just click on this material and just drag it and drop it on the object that you have inside your scene. Now, you won't be able to see anything unless you go and click this right here, show shaded material in the viewport. And now our material is basically, our object has basically a texture on it, but you'll see it doesn't look great, especially here, because it's stretched. I mean, for now, it is great. We're using a texture, and you'll see ways in which we can actually solve this.